There comes a time in every life when the silence becomes louder than the noise, when you finally sit in the presence of yourself and ask, why have I accepted so little for so long? To love yourself is not a slogan. It is a confrontation. You must walk into the mirror and see not just the light, but the shadows, the parts of you you've hidden from the world, the parts that cry in the night and smile in the morning. The ones that settled, the ones that stayed, the ones that begged for love with their hands folded instead of open. There is a part of you that you've tried to forget, not because it is evil, but because it is wounded, not because it is wrong, but because it was never given the space to be understood. This part of you carries the unspoken memories, the time you needed someone to stay, and they left, the words you longed to hear, but never came. The moments when your spirit cried for acknowledgement and was met with silence, you survived by shutting it down, you told yourself it doesn't matter, you laughed to cover pain, you became strong to cover the softness no one protected. But the soul remembers. It remembers every betrayal you tolerated in the name of peace. It remembers every time you were chosen last and still smiled. It remembers every time you lowered your voice, your needs, your light, just to be accepted. This is the shadow. It is not evil. It is exiled. It is not darkness. It is the light you've buried beneath the roles you've learned to play. We are taught early on that love is earned, that if we are good enough, quiet enough, useful enough, they will stay. So we become performers instead of people. We rehearse instead of live. We please instead of feel. But the more you deny this shadow, the more it controls you. You'll find yourself in patterns you cannot explain, choosing partners who neglect you, jobs that diminish you, friends who drain you. You will sabotage opportunities that align with your higher self because deep down, that part of you still believes you are not worthy of better. This is the tragedy of self-neglect. It's not obvious. It hides beneath high-functioning lives and fake smiles. It cloaks itself in perfectionism, people, pleasing, hyper-independence. It sounds like, I'm fine. It's not a big deal. I don't need help. But it's all armor. Armor that protects the wound. Armor that eventually becomes the prison. And there's no freedom in pretending. No healing in avoidance. No peace in silence. You must return to that younger part of yourself. The one who first learned to shrink. And sit beside them. Not to fix them, but to witness them. To finally say, I see you. I'm sorry. I will not abandon you again. There is a throne within you. Not one built by society. Not one granted by status or success. But one that was formed at the core of your being from the moment you were born. It is ancient, sacred, silent, and for many it has gone unclaimed. Because claiming it means remembering that you are not here to beg for crumbs. You are here to embody sovereignty, not in dominance, but in dignity, not in superiority, but in sacred authority. The inner king or queen is not loud. It does not demand attention. It commands respect simply by being. Its strength is not in how it reacts, but in how it holds presence. It knows who it is, even when others don't. But this inner royalty has been buried under layers of social conditioning that told you to be small, buried beneath wounds that made you question your worth, buried beneath roles you inherited, roles that asked you to serve everyone else while forgetting yourself. You've been taught to serve the kingdom of others, their expectations, their validation, their needs. And somewhere along the way, you forgot the land of your own soul. You forgot the laws of your own inner realm. The inner king or queen is not about control. It is about alignment. It listens not to the voice of the crowd, but to the whisper of the soul. It does not conform. It governs. It does not seek permission. It moves with purpose. When this archetype awakens, something shifts. You stop chasing love. You stop over-explaining your worth. You stop negotiating your value with people who have not earned access to your energy. You walk into rooms with quiet power, not because you believe you're better, but because you finally remember you belong. You begin to move differently, speak differently, choose differently. You no longer entertain what diminishes you. You no longer participate in your own disempowerment, because the crown is not made of gold. It is made of self-respect. It is not worn on the head, but in how you carry yourself, in how you speak your truth, in how you protect your peace. And you realize something radical, that the throne was never vacant. You just forgot you had the right to sit on it. Boundaries are not walls. They are not punishments. They are not rejections. They are translations. The way your soul speaks its truth to the world. They say, "This is who I am. This is what I value. This is where I end and you begin." To live without boundaries is to live without a voice. It is to hand your script to someone else and let them decide how your story unfolds. It is to bleed out your time, your energy, your purpose, into spaces that were never meant to hold you. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that love means sacrifice, that to be good, you must be available, that to be kind, you must always say yes. But that is not love. That is self-erasure. You were not put on this earth to be everything for everyone. You were not born to accommodate the dysfunction of others. You are not here to be agreeable at the cost of your authenticity. When you fail to set boundaries, you are not just betraying yourself, you are training the world to ignore your soul. And it starts small. You laugh at jokes that make you uncomfortable. You answer calls you don't want to take. You say it's fine when it isn't. You stay in rooms where your spirit is shrinking. Each moment subtle, each one a quiet departure from yourself. And slowly you begin to forget what you need. You begin to forget what you want. You begin to forget that you are allowed to protect your peace, even if it disappoints others. Because here's the truth. You can love someone and still say no. You can be compassionate and still walk away. You can care deeply and still choose yourself. There is no virtue in exhaustion, no divinity in self-abandonment. To say this is not okay with me is an act of courage. To say I cannot give more right now is an act of truth. To say I deserve better is an act of revolution, but it will feel uncomfortable, especially if you were raised to believe that being needed equals being loved, especially if your survival once depended on being liked, praised, accepted. You will feel guilt, you will feel fear, you will feel resistance, because boundaries disrupt patterns, patterns of people pleasing, patterns of being the caretaker, patterns of shrinking so others can expand. But guilt is not always a sign that you're doing something wrong. Sometimes it's the residue of old programming being burned away by your truth. And the moment you begin to honor your yes and protect your no, something begins to shift. There is a path. It is not marked by signs. It is not lit by the praise of others. It does not begin in the eyes of the world, but in the quiet ache beneath your rib. It is the path toward wholeness, not perfection, not performance, not popularity. Wholeness. To be whole is to no longer divide yourself into pieces to survive. It is to stop compartmentalizing your truth to fit into containers too small for your spirit. It is to gather the lost parts of yourself, the wounded child, the silenced artist, the buried dreamer, and say, "You are welcome here, all of you." This is individuation. It is not a goal, it is a becoming. A long spiraling return to your essence. Individuation is the soul's rebellion against imitation. It is the deep refusal to live according to someone else's blueprint. It is when the masks begin to itch, when the costume no longer fits, when the applause begins to sound hollow, because the stage you're standing on isn't yours, and so begins the unraveling. You will question everything, what you've been told, what you've accepted, what you've called love that was actually survival, what you've called identity that was actually adaptation, because most people do not meet themselves. They meet their reflection in others' expectations. They meet their conditioned self, the version molded by family, culture, trauma, fear. But individuation whispers, come home. Come home to the you who existed before the world told you who to be. It is not always graceful. It is not a straight line. There will be grief for the parts of you that had to die in order to be seen. There will be loneliness for the roads that cannot be walked in a crowd. There will be rage for the years you lived in fragments. And yet, there will also be a strange kind of peace, not the peace of comfort, but the peace of alignment, the knowing that you are no longer at war with your own reflection, that your inner world is no longer governed by contradiction. Because to be whole is to be true, to let the intuitive rise beside the logical, to honor the dreamer alongside the doer, to integrate the shadow with the light, to say, I am not this or that, I am both, I am all. Individuation is the courageous walk into the forest of your soul without a map willing to get lost, just to find what's real. It asks nothing but honesty, radical, raw honesty, the kind that cracks illusions, the kind that humbles the ego, the kind that says, even if they don't understand me, I will no longer abandon myself. And somewhere along that path, after the shedding, after the fire, after the silence, you begin to recognize yourself, not as a version, not as a role, but as a soul. The world around you is not neutral, it is reflective. Every person you meet, every relationship you hold, every situation you attract, all of them, in some way, mirror back to you what is happening inside. This is the great paradox. What you perceive in others often reveals more about you than about them. What you admire is often what you've buried. What you resent is often what you've denied. What triggers you is often what remains unhealed. We project what we reject. We project what we refuse to see. We project what we are not yet ready to hold with compassion. And so, the lover who does not listen may mirror the part of you that ignores your own voice. The friend who constantly takes may reflect the part of you that feels guilty for receiving. The authority you fear may reveal your forgotten power, the one you handed over long ago in exchange for safety. But here's the hard truth. If you do not look inward, you will spend your life blaming the mirror. You'll call it fate. You'll call it betrayal. You'll say, they keep doing this to me. But beneath every repeated wound is a deeper invitation. Why do I keep saying yes to this version of myself? We attract not what we deserve, but what we believe, and belief is powerful. It hides beneath the surface, shaping every interaction like an invisible script. You may tell yourself, I want love, but if your inner belief says, I am unworthy, you will sabotage it before it can bloom. You may say, I want respect, but if the hidden voice whispers, I must prove myself to be enough, you will tolerate environments that deplete you. The mirror does not lie, but it does distort when we refuse to take ownership of what is being shown. And this is the work, to sit with your reflections without shame, to look at the people in your life not as enemies or saviors, but as teachers, to ask not why are they like this, but what part of me is alive in this experience. The ones who triggered you the most, look again. The ones who abandoned you, what did they wake up in you? The ones who adored you, why did you struggle to receive it? The mirror doesn't just show what you project outward, it also shows what you deny inward. Many people fear being seen, but what they really fear is seeing themselves, because once you truly see, you cannot unsee. You cannot go back to pretending you are powerless. You cannot return to the comfort of blame. You cannot keep playing small and call it destiny. To see clearly is to take responsibility, not for what others do, but for how you respond, for what you accept, for what you entertain, for what you silently allow. The mirror does not bring justice, it brings awareness, And with awareness comes choice. The choice to step out of old patterns, the choice to raise your standards, the choice to rewrite your reflection.